Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new Pick a Side live reaction. I'm with Mr. Joe Dels, two-man weaving it once again, and we got a closeout tonight. I thought it was going to be the Warriors closing out the Rockets. It turns out it wasn't. It was the Timberwolves closing out the Lakers on the road. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, we're getting right into it, huh? No, how are you? How was your night? I think that's what we should do. Let's get right into it. This series, a lot was made of this series going into it. Of course, Minnesota fans were not happy that we all picked the Lakers, and a little disrespectful to Minnesota. At least some people on the panel. I know you had just one of the most intelligent, analysis of this series that I've seen
Appreciate it.
across the internet. It was really straight focused.
A
But
plus.
regardless, Minnesota fans weren't happy. And what this series really came down to was in the fourth quarter, in the clutch, which star duo, which pairing, which team was going to be the one that performed. And I believe, just like everyone else thought, it would be the Lakers because you have Luka Doncic and LeBron James. They mentioned on the broadcast today that after the first three quarters, the Lakers actually had a positive point differential going up against this Minnesota Timberwolves team. But in the fourth quarter, if you look at all of the games they lost, going back to game one, they get outscored by 6 points in the fourth quarter. Game three, they get outscored by 10 points in the fourth quarter. Game four, they get outscored by 13 points in the fourth quarter when they just outscored Minnesota by 13 in the third quarter. And then tonight in game five, they get outscored 22 to 16 points for the Lakers. They only put up 16 points in a must have it game. And this game feels like there's like five different storylines in it because the Lakers come out super sluggish. Minnesota gets up to like a 12, 13 point lead early in this game. Then in the second quarter, Luka has the back injury. And, the couple possessions after that, he was not able to move at all. He goes into the tunnel right away to, with a minute left into the game. He comes out in that third quarter and he was excellent, at least offensively. He was able to hit a couple of threes. He was getting to the free throw line, and Luka looked, still a little hobbled, but hit a little bit into his game, a little bit of explosiveness there. But down the stretch in the fourth quarter, who I really thought had a great, great fourth quarter was Julius Randle. And Randle's been someone that's gotten criticized for right or for wrong in the playoffs for not showing up. And he didn't just show up in this series, but he showed up down the stretch in this game, especially because Anthony Edwards didn't have his normal Anthony Edwards heroics in this game where he's the guy closing out. He's the guy attacking the basket. He's the guy hitting these clutch threes and be able to facilitate. But it was really Julius Randle being able to close out this series. And I can't say anything else without saying Rudy Gobert's name because this was the Rudy Gobert game. I tweeted it about halfway or maybe halfway through the third quarter. This is the best game of his career. What Rudy Gobert did in this game was the most impressive thing that I've seen him do. And again, there's no center on this team. JJ Redick really played 48 minutes of small ball. I don't count Maxi Kleber as a five by any means. The fact that he even got minutes in this game is a whole nother story. We could talk about JJ Redick and some of the decisions he made in this series. But when you're going to go small and when you take Jackson Hayes out of the lineup, regardless of who you are, this is what the center needs to do, let alone Rudy Gobert, who's a 7-footer, who's one of the best rebounders in the sport, of course, one of the best defenders in the sport. But he has a 27-point, 24 rebound game, including 9 offensive rebounds. He was a game best, plus 18 in this game, played 39 minutes, second most on the team. He was exceptional. If it wasn't for Rudy Gobert, this game is maybe a calm 10 to 15 point win for the Lakers. The way that he was able to dominate the glass on both sides, the way he was able to protect the paint, protect the rim when anyone was trying to go and drive against him, they were hesitating. They were pulling that ball out. So Rudy Gobert had an exceptional game. This was a real team effort from Minnesota because, again, Anthony Edwards didn't go out there and have 40 like he's been doing damn near all series. Jaden McDaniels didn't shoot, 80% from this game. He was only 2 for 4, ended up fouling out. This was everybody on the roster stepping up, and then down in the fourth quarter in the clutch, just giving the ball to Julius Randle. He was able to get some switches onto Luka Doncic, take him to the rim, finish over him, and Minnesota advances. 4-1 series, really impressive because this Lakers team, maybe we overrated them a bit, but they were still a really good team post Luka, and this was a defense that statistically was really good, but now we look back at it, 2020 might have got a little overrated.
For everybody in the chat right now that's watching, make sure you guys drop a like for the chat. I see your messages. Drew, this week was the start of his nursing job, so he's had to wake up very early in the morning. So that's why he's probably very tired and he couldn't make it on stream. And Riv told you guys he's not sacrificing sleep. He can't. He said it's not going to happen. He was so excited for the playoffs, Dales, before it started. He was lecturing us on how excited he was about the playoffs. And then he's like, you know what? Playoffs are here. I can't sacrifice sleep. I can't. It's not exciting enough. But neither here or there. Um, Here's how I feel about this series, and I just want to talk about this particular game. Rudy Gobert is the star of the night. You laid it out perfectly. The Minnesota Timberwolves went small for the majority of this series. This game specifically was the biggest they went. Rudy Gobert played 38 minutes, which was the most this series. He had 27 points, 24 rebounds, 9 offensive rebounds. The Wolves out rebounded the Lakers, 65 rebounds to 48 rebounds, and you knew it was going to be that type of night from the first quarter. The first couple of possessions, you saw Minnesota miss like 4 straight threes, and the Wolves kept coming down with offensive boards. Minnesota shot 15% from 3. They went 7 for 47. The difference in this game was the extra possessions and Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle coming up big and playing like one of the best front courts in basketball. These are not updated, these numbers for game 5. But through 4 games, Rudy Gobert, when he's guarded Austin Reeves, Reeves has went 5 for 15, 33%. Luka has went 5 for 14, 35%. LeBron has went 4 for 13, 31%. Rui has went 3 for 11, 27%. For somebody that always gets made to be the butt of the joke whenever there's a big shot hit over him, even though he guards really well, this was a fantastic series for him on defense. You saw in game 1, people put up some highlights of, or game 2, and people put up some highlights of him getting scored on in the game. But this series, he's been elite on defense with the switches. It is very reminiscent of last year versus the Suns when he guarded KD and Booker and Beal in switches, and he neutralized them. We have to praise Rudy Gobert because he is one of the most underrated defenders of this generation. There's a reason why he's a multiple-time defensive player of the year, and he gets a bad rap, and people don't look all the way into the numbers and how well he plays. And when he plays well, people don't acknowledge it. But the problem in Utah was always the perimeter defense with that team. It was never him himself. He had to cover up for so many things. People often bring up the Terrence Mann situations, but you see this Wolves team. They have great perimeter defenders. They're able to help Rudy Gobert to where he doesn't have to do everything on defense, and he shined in this series, and he deserves a lot of credit. Anthony Edwards, 15 and 11, 5 for 19, didn't have a good game. Julius Randle, 23 and 5. He was really good. I mentioned that the Wolves shot poorly. The Lakers, I want to touch on this because in the fourth quarter, they didn't generate good offense. Reeves for the game shot 36% from the field. Luka shot 39% from the field. LeBron shot 43% from the field with 20% from 3. In order for the Lakers to win this game and win this series, they had to shoot well from 3. They shot 30% from 3. You're not going to lose the rebounding battle, be a worse defensive team, shoot bad, and beat a team as good as Minnesota. It's just not going to happen. It exposed a lot of things with the team that I want to touch on in a little bit before I'm done giving the Wolves flowers. I just feel like this team deserves ultimate flowers. I think they are making the Western Conference Finals. I think it will be OKC versus Minnesota in the WCF. And what you mentioned earlier about my analysis on them, I feel like it was fair. The biggest wild card in it was the clutch time offense. All signs in the regular season pointed to the Lakers being a better clutch time offense. And as you said, that the fourth quarter would be decided by a couple of possessions and the Wolves would come out on top. This is the same Wolves team that a couple games before the playoffs blew a 20-plus point lead to the Bucks, and they had trouble against a 2-3 zone defense in the regular season. They had a negative record in clutch time games. This was one of the worst clutch time teams in the NBA this past season, and the Lakers were one of the best. So when you think that you're getting a close game, you expect Luka and LeBron to come out on top, and they didn't play well enough. Reeves didn't play well enough. That's what this series boggles down to. I think Luka deserves credit for coming back hurt and playing well, but They didn't get enough from him. You look at the final numbers for this series. Luka averages 37 and 6, but his defense was a problem. He wasn't the most efficient from three, just 35%. LeBron averaged 25, 9, and 6. He was efficient, but it's just they didn't get enough from the role players. And that's what I want to get into in a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts and what you have to say about Minnesota a little bit more, but Minnesota really just deserves a lot of credit. And I do wish I picked them because all the analysis points pointed to them. But this is a great victory. And for so many players that get a bad rap, to Gobert, to Randall, to Jaden McDaniels, they really flipped the script and they played amazing.
Yeah, it's a bit of redemption story across the board. You mentioned it, and I laughed when you said it, but Rudy Gobert, even with his 4 Defensive Player of the Years, still is underrated as a defender because you look at the series last year against Dallas, and Luka Doncic hits a game-winning three to send them to the finals, and all of a sudden he can't guard. And I think it's just unfair because you're asking a guy who's 7'2" to guard one of the best perimeter players, one of the best players, period, in the NBA out on the perimeter. That's just not his game. And people are going to really fixate on that. And they have throughout all of his career. But this was one of those series where Rudy Gobert was out there and he was moving his feet on the perimeter. And was he playing picture perfect defense? No, but when you're 7'2", as long as you're within range for them, you have a pretty good job of being able to close out. And I thought that's what Rudy was doing consistently in this series. That, of course, he's not going to stay perfectly in front of you, but he's going to make those shots difficult. He has such a crazy reach that you're going to have to put arc over him if you're shooting like a step back three, as we know Luka and LeBron love to do so much. We could get into the Lakers a little bit here because there's a couple of things I'm thinking. Number one, matchups are so important in the playoffs. Riv says it all the time, but you really just think like, what happens if the Lakers win a couple more games and they're the 2 seed and they're going up against, the 7 seeded Warriors? Or what happens if they lose a couple games and they're the 7 seed and they go up against the 2 seeded Rockets? And now their path to a potential second round or WCF looks incredibly different because they have a much more favorable first round matchup. As hindsight being 2020, Minnesota was a terrible matchup for them. So I do just want to be a little, um, careful about how we judge the Lakers here, because if they did go up against a team like the Rockets, for example, even though we all would have picked them and they go and they win that first round, and then say in the second round, it evens out. So they play at Denver or they play whoever it might be, basically anyone outside of OKC or Minnesota, and they have another favorable matchup. Now they could be in the WCF. But there's really 2 teams I think stuck out to me for looking now what was negative for the Lakers, and that was Minnesota. I think that would have been OKC. But it is so matchup dependent that fixating on the result could be a little, misleading. With that being said, this was a series where both Luka and LeBron played pretty awful in the fourth quarter, right? Nearly all of these games were super close in the fourth quarter. Their 2-star players were basically no shows in those moments. And all of these games came down to the wire. It's very reminiscent of the last 2 years of what it's been for the Los Angeles Lakers when they were going up against Denver. And it felt like Denver just has their number, right? It's not a Lakers issue. It's Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and they're the champs. They just have our number. But we're going on 3 years in a row now where, of course, 2 years ago, the Lakers won some playoff series. So I'm not saying they can't win the playoffs, but we're going on 3 years in a row now where the Lakers have been in all of these games in these high stake moments. They've been in the lead for 3 quarters in a lot of these. And then the fourth quarter comes around and they're not able to put it away. That's been with different coaching staffs, right? Whether you look at Darvin Ham or JJ Redick, that's been with different co-stars with Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic. That's been with different role players. But that's just been the story of the Lakers for the last 3 years, where for 3 quarters, they look like the better team. And, I think this Timberwolves maybe not as much, but at least in those Denver series, they looked just as good, if not as better. But then the fourth quarter comes around and they're just not able to put that team to bed. Again, they've had great offensive teams, great defensive teams, some good role players, some not good role players, but it's been the same outcome for 3 straight years now for this Los Angeles Lakers team. And to talk about what they could possibly do in the future, you're going to have Luka on this team. You're going to have Bron on this team. I think Austin Reeves, even though he struggled in this series, he has shown in the past to be a really good playoff performer. So I don't think, his job is in jeopardy, especially with the salary he's making. It's going to be difficult to move off Austin Reeves, his $12, $13 million a year, to find someone who's as impactful as him, even though he has some deficiencies specifically on defense. And even with ball pressure, I thought in this series, like when Edwards or anyone was getting up into his face, he definitely got rattled and was just completely out of it. He wasn't really used as a playmaker much at all. As well, I heard you on your TikTok saying that, of course, not having a pick and roll mate is definitely going to hurt him there too. But when you look at some of these role players and who they could bring in, the number one thing is they need a center. They need a center desperately. I thought JJ Redick's decision to completely go away from Jackson Hayes in this game specifically probably bit him in the butt a little bit. I feel like at some point, Rudy Gobert has a career game against you. Is there a different button you can press? Like if Maxi Kleba is getting minutes, I feel like Jackson Hayes could probably get minutes too. Maxi Kleba hasn't played basketball in basically all year, it feels like. So number one is getting a real center who can be a vertical threat, who can defend. Of course, Mark Williams was, their target and then the physical fell through. But then some of these role players, you really need to kind of model what Dallas did last year when it's Derrick Jones and it's PJ Washington and you have guys that can defend around Luka and Reeves and sometimes LeBron James, especially in the regular season, because there's going to be natural deficiencies on any team. And for this Lakers team, it's going to be defense specifically on the perimeter, right? Like Luka Doncic, he's going to get blown by. Just what it is. Austin Reeves, the same thing. He's either going to get blown by or he's too small for a lot of guys. But if you have a backline defender that can make up for that, your defense can at least be respectable. And I feel like in this series, and I'm not sure what the defensive rating said, but in the clutch time, it was a lot easier for the Wolves to be like, all right, we could get past Luka or Reeves, and now there's nobody at the paint. This is going to be pretty easy to get buckets when we really need it to. So I think getting number one, obviously a center who could play playoff minutes, who could defend the rim, who could be a vertical threat for LeBron, Reeves, and Luka Doncic, and then getting some better defensive personnel. The only guy that I really feel strong about is DFS. He fouled out in this game. Like DFS is someone that you could rely on defensively out of the bunch they have now, at least compared to, like the Rui Hachimuras and whatnot. But those are the two biggest things that I think the Lakers need to do. And the last thing I'll just say here is it wasn't JJ Redick's best series. I think JJ Redick, of course, rookie head coach, and he was limited with the personnel he did have, but it definitely wasn't his best series when throughout this regular season, I thought he was one of the better head coaches in the NBA.
I agree with a lot of what you said outside of giving some grace to the Lakers. The Lakers deserve zero grace. They came into this series as a favorite. They came into this series, I would say, as a heavy favorite to everybody on mainstream media.
Like minus 200.
They were also a favorite to Vegas. Nobody gave the Timberwolves a chance walking into the series, and the Timberwolves exposed every single thing that's wrong with this roster. I don't believe in the Lakers organization. We overlook the fact that before LeBron got there, they were a complete dumpster fire, and LeBron got there, and then they traded for Anthony Davis, and they got lucky because they were so bad for so many years that they had high-profile draft picks to make a trade like that happen. They got Anthony Davis. They built a good roster. I will give Rob Pelinka credit. The 2020 roster had a good combination of role players and the two stars. But then you trade for Russell Westbrook, which was a disastrous trade. You blame it all on LeBron, but I'm sure Rob Pelinka had a major hand in it as well. I'm sure he probably wanted to pull the trigger, but whatever. It's LeBron's fault. Let's just leave it at that. Darvin Ham, as a rookie head coach, goes to the conference finals. You make some great trade deadline trades. You did something similar to what the Mavericks did last year. You traded for Rui Hachimura. You had D'Angelo Russell. I mean, they were awesome, right? But then the next season's a disappointment. People also forget that Rob Pelinka was the same guy very early in his Lakers tenure, traded Ivica Zubac for Mike Muscala. And Zubac is one of the better centers in the NBA, and they could really use him. There was a reason why this Lakers team, after LeBron retired, was going to be one of the worst futures in the NBA, because you had an aging Anthony Davis with Austin Reeves and a bunch of C to B minus role players at best. I'm being generous. Pelinka got gifted a generational superstar and Luka Doncic to rebuild this franchise around. You look at this roster, we are singing him praises for trading D'Lo for DFS. DFS averaged 6 points in this series. Gabe Vincent averaged 3 points in this series in 20 minutes. You look at the players who played the most minutes in this series: Luka, LeBron, Reeves, Rui, DFS, Gabe Vincent, Gerald Vanderbilt. Those are the only players that played more than 10 minutes in this series. They have 5 good players max, and DFS can't be your 5th best player. That just can't happen. You look at OKC, DFS would be like the 9th man. You look at the Celtics, he'd be like the 8th man. Is he even better than Sam Hauser at this point? I don't know. They don't have good role players, and this is what I'm trying to say about the Lakers. They are in a very tough position, and Rob Pelinka has to get it right. I don't think Luka is going to be as loyal to the Lakers as he was to the Mavericks. I don't think he has that same attachment. He is going to have to see if they can build a competent roster around him. And I thought JJ Redick completely going away from Jackson Hayes and leaning into small ball the entirety of the series was one of the most arrogant coaching decisions that I've ever seen watching basketball. He played 5 players 24 straight minutes in the second half of game 4. That was the first time a head coach has ever done that. He was asked about it and he walked out the press conference.
He was pissed.
It was a valid question, maybe not worded the best, but it was a valid question. And from what I've been watching JJ Redick closely. I think he has a phenomenal basketball mind. I really enjoy listening to his podcast. I think JJ Redick in 5 years, if you were to tell me to bet on one or two outcomes, he's still the Lakers head coach or he's back to podcasting, I'd bet he's back to podcasting. I don't think he has the temperament to be a head coach. The way that he has been caught yelling at his players in that type of tone, not handling reporters the best way, losing his cool, losing his temper. These are all things that he's gotten away with that I don't like. And I don't think that that type of temperament is going to fall well in later seasons. It's just his first season. So he gets some grace, but I don't think that's going to bode well with his players and with the way he's arrogant to media members that are asking valid questions. I just see him as a very short fuse, short-tempered coach.
Yeah, I think the way the reporter asked it was insinuating that JJ Redick doesn't lean on his assistant coaches for substitution patterns. I think that's what JJ got mad at, basically saying, do you think I'm just out here being a dictator, just making all the decisions? Like, I asked my assistant coaches, and I think that's why he got pissed more than anything. I think JJ's a good coach. I think he had a really bad series. And to say, will he be the head coach of the Lakers in 5 years? The odds are he won't be, because how many coaches in the NBA right now have been 6 years or longer with their current team? It's a very, very small list. It's just the reality of being a head coach, not in the NBA, but really any professional sport. You could look at the NFL too. I mean, most head coaches, if you're not at least making a WCF push in a couple of years, if you're looked at as a contender, you're probably going to get pushed to the side. I mean, we saw Mike Malone get fired after winning a championship 2 years ago, right? So it wouldn't shock me if JJ Redick's not the head coach.
He got out coached bad.
He did get out coached, and it's hard because the Lakers' strength is this small ball, right? Like, the Lakers' strength entering the series was, if you're able to have 5 shooters out there, in theory, right? You have 5 shooters out there, you negate some of the things Rudy Gobert can do as a rim protector, and you'll be able to space out the floor, and Luka can, drive and kick and get to the rim. And it sounded good on paper, but you read out some of the stats. The role players didn't step up. Gabe Vincent, DFS, Austin Reeves, they weren't efficient from 3. And you could play small ball. If you play small ball, you better hit some damn 3-pointers. And this Lakers team was not able to do that for a majority of this series. And I see some of the comments saying he played Maxi Kleber. Yeah, it's insane. It's really an insane move for a guy that hasn't played basketball basically all year to get real credit.
And here's the thing, Dels, is Maxi Kleber was coming off an injury. Jackson Hayes, the leash on him was so short, and he was the only viable center option, and he was playing well to end the regular season. People are saying it's hard. I read the comments. I'm reading the chat right now. It's hard to win 50 games in your first year as a head coach. Absolutely. Nobody's saying it is not. At the same time, you have LeBron James and you got gifted Luka Doncic in the middle of the season. I mean, those type of guys can will you to that type of success. And they got Anthony Davis. You want to know who made the conference finals in their first year as a coach? Darvin Ham, and he got fired 2 years later. The Lakers last year won 47 games.
To be
That's
fair,
close to
Joel,
50.
to be fair,
All I'm saying is you can have 50 wins and still not pan out. We
yeah,
saw somebody just go to the conference finals and he's not the coach 2 years later.
to be fair to JJ and Darvin Ham, I think if you put JJ as the head coach on that team, was that 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago at this point, I think they also get to the Western Conference Finals. I think they still beat Memphis. I think they still beat Golden State. Those were two very flawed teams looking back on it. That Golden State team, Jordan Poole, my God, it was awful. Klay Thompson
I
was
agree.
awful. The Grizzlies were not a great, they were a second seed, but they weren't a really good second seed. So, again, the matchups matter a lot because if the Lakers would have got the same thing where they're the 7th seed and they go up against the Rockets in the second round, say they play the Golden State Warriors and a couple guys have bad series, now they're in the WCF, we're praising JJ Redick, right? So I think it's tough,
But they
because
didn't.
I think if JJ's in that position, he still goes to
They
WCF.
lost. They were favored. They lost. They were
I
heavy
hear you.
favorites.
I
You
hear you.
picked them in 5 and they lost. They
6.
got smoked.
6.
6? Okay. I'm saying they got smoked. You're talking about all these different scenarios. If they played this team, if they played this team, if they played that team,
No, I know.
things could have went differently. Everybody thought that scenario of them winning and advancing was going to happen this series,
Yeah, I'm just
including
giving a
me.
little bit of grace. I'm just giving a little bit of
I
grace.
just think it's unacceptable when you, for an entire half, do something a coach has never done in the history of basketball. And then you lean into small ball, and instead of giving Jackson Hayes 10 to 15 minutes, you'd rather play Maxi Kleber, who's coming fresh off an injury. This is a team that they had no center at all. And that's going to be priority number one. But the way that I'm looking at the Lakers right now, they gotta prioritize center number one, because not only was it terrible on the defensive side of the ball, not having a real rim protector, but on offense, the type of pressure that you can put on a defense when you have somebody that can threaten the basket, that can score at the rim, is huge. When Luka is one of the best pick and roll players in the world. LeBron, same thing. Austin Reeves, very good pick and roll player. When you don't have a center, you can't run pick and rolls. You can only run pick and pops. Who's going to roll to the rim? Rui, DFS, a 40-year-old LeBron? You cannot threaten the rim. When you're going and you're getting a screen and you're going to hit a floater, Rudy Gobert doesn't have to think about staying home on whoever he's defending because there's no lob threat. It puts a defense in a bind, and that's something that even Jackson Hayes fouling on the offensive side of the basketball, he would have at least been able to add a threat offensively in being a lob threat. And the Lakers just became very one-dimensional, very horizontally driven, just passing the ball around the perimeter, trying to get some mismatches on a Minnesota team that has no mismatches you can really attack outside of Mike Conley. And it just became a game of ISOs, passing side to side, shooting a three, and that led to them just having no rhythm. So I think the lack of center and the lack of playing a center was huge. And I think a big reason why JJ Redick played nothing but small ball in this game was because he was trying to prove to the world that his decision making last game in game 4 was the correct decision, playing everybody for the entire second half. I just think there's a certain arrogance with JJ Redick that maybe he can grow from, but his first playoff series and the way that he's managed it and the way that I've seen him talk about his players and the way that I've seen him handle press conferences, I think there's a very short temperament with him.
Yeah, I definitely think the Maxey decision was probably his worst decision of the series. I'll say one last thing, and then if you have anything to say, you can. I get labeled a Luka hater. I'm fine with it. I have my thoughts on Luka Doncic are out there. I think he's an exceptional player. He is one of the best offensive players I've ever seen. With that being said, if the Lakers want to seriously contend for a championship, not be like a first, second round exit, but they want to seriously contend for a championship, this has to be the summer. This has to be the summer. Luka Doncic is hearing all of the noise. You got traded. You're hearing everything that's going on TV and the media. This is the season to get in shape. This is the season where you go into, game end. Your game ends today. Take a couple months off, whatever you got to do. But this has to be the summer that you're going into the offseason saying, I am going to be as good a shape as I've ever been in my life. Because You look at this series, you look at the NBA Finals, go look at all of his fourth quarters from this series and the NBA Finals, his last, 10 playoff games. I believe he has one game where he scored more than 7 points in the fourth quarter. And that was game 5 of the finals last year when they were down 15 points in the fourth quarter. Luka Doncic, for 2 big series in a row, dating back to last year, has not been able to show up in the fourth quarter because he physically cannot do it. This isn't like he can't play defense. He's a cone, because I'm not expecting Luka Doncic to play all NBA level defense. This is about him being in physical shape with these other guys, because we see what he can do while probably being in the worst shape as anyone out there on the court. He could still go out there and give you 39 and 8 a night. But if he's able to go out there and be in average shape, not terrible shape, but just be in average shape, this guy can win multiple championships. He could win multiple MVPs. And he's so damn good that maybe he could just be below average and still be able to get away with it. But if he could go into this offseason and say, I'm putting my head down, I have LeBron here who takes care of his body as anyone else. I have JJ Redick, who is, as locked in as a head coach. I know we just talked about him a lot, but he's obviously very intense, and he's the guy that played in the NBA for a decade plus. He knows what it takes to keep your body in shape. Luka Doncic has to go into this offseason. Number one priority is, I need to be able to play deep into the fourth quarters, deep into the playoffs, and not be huffing and puffing, so I could be there for my team on both sides of the ball.
That's a fair and valid point. I think you're making some good points. I just don't like the insinuation that Luka is out of shape when he played 42 minutes per game in this series and he averaged 37 and 6. That's what he did last year. He played through multiple injuries and led the playoffs in 9 categories and made the finals. The year before that, the Mavericks make a midseason trade for Kyrie. They have injuries. They don't make the playoffs. The year before that, he made the conference finals with DFS, Reggie Bullock, and Dwight Powell starting at center.
Well, you have 2 eyes. You could tell this guy, rank the 10 guys who's in the best shape on this court today. Where does Luka rank?
In the best shape?
In conditioning, yes. Where does he rank?
How do you even rank? Do you think DFS is in better shape than Luka?
Well, it's obviously different because DFS is playing off the ball. He's not being asked to initiate.
And that's what I think
yes,
you have
he's
to.
In better shape.
No, he's not. Maybe he looks like he's in better shape, but anybody who can drop 31 in 42 minutes played versus a player who's playing 34 minutes. Yes,
well, he falls
Luka's in better basketball shape.
Every fourth quarter, he
also has so did LeBron. LeBron didn't play well in the fourth. So did Austin Reeves. Everybody didn't play well in the fourth.
Some dudes are missing shots. Some dudes can't get shots up.
Where was to end the OKC series last year to the pathway to the finals? The last 3 games of the series, Luka was amazing. There was no fourth quarter talk there. In the conference finals of the Timberwolves series, there was no fourth quarter talk there. In the Clippers series, when he had the back-to-back closeout games where he was amazing, there was no fourth quarter talk there. I mean, we're nitpicking him because in the finals, his teammates shot 17% from 3. Okay, in the finals, when his teammates shot 17% from 3, because they lost, we're going to point at Luka and say it's his fault, it's the defense, it's that. They don't have anybody on the roster that can stay in front of anybody. DFS is their best perimeter defender, and he was getting blown by routinely. And I'm not saying Luka's a good defender. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just pushing back on the notion that he's in bad shape. Could he be in better shape? I'm not going to argue.
He's in good shape.
I'm not going to argue that he can't. He could be in better shape. He could be in better shape.
He's getting blown by.
He's not in bad shape. If you're playing 42 minutes in the playoffs and you're averaging 31 on good efficiency, you're not in bad shape. There's no way you could. There's no way you can argue me he's in bad shape.
Not compared to me and you, because we're not playing 42 damn minutes a night in the NBA.
Okay.
Compared to his peers, compared to Julius Randle, compared to Anthony Edwards, compared to LeBron James in this series, he is by far and away not even the same.
Anthony Edwards went 5 for 19 tonight. Was he in bad shape tonight?
Okay, what about every other damn game in the series?
Okay, what about Kawhi Leonard outside of game 2? He hasn't showed up in any fourth quarter for the Clippers against the Nuggets. Is he in bad shape?
You're
any player that doesn't play well in the fourth quarter is in bad shape?
No, because you're too focused. You're a process over results guy. Just because you have a great fourth quarter or a terrible fourth quarter doesn't necessarily mean if you're in shape or not. We watched this damn series. Luka Doncic was huffing and puffing and out of shape in every fourth quarter.
Dels. And he got hurt His back got hurt in
This
this
game, yes,
game, and he
I'm not.
proceeded to play well after that.
He had, yes, no, he did, and he was exceptional in the third quarter. And I'm not even dragging on him for this game because his back was hurt. I didn't say nothing about this game. Nothing. I put up those stats after
I'm
game
just
4.
saying.
He's been atrocious this series. He's
I'm
been god awful.
So I'm just saying, because people seem to think this is a thing with Luka. So when they made the finals last year, he was in bad shape.
He was in bad shape. He still did it.
He was in bad
I'm not
shape
gonna
for the
say it, but he
entirety
was
of the
in bad
finals.
shape, yes.
For the entirety of the finals run, he was in bad shape.
I mean,
Against OKC, he was in bad
exposed
shape.
in the finals. I don't think
Against Minnesota, he was in bad shape.
Yes.
I just can't agree with that. I just don't think an athlete that's playing 42 minutes of highly intense basketball, who's playing elite, is in bad shape. I can't get behind that. I can't.
This is not.
Could he be in better shape? Yes.
This is not comparing Luka to the average Joe. This is comparing Luka to the top 10 players in basketball.
And he's one of the best players in basketball, Dels.
Okay, compare him to the top 3. Nikola Jokic is in maybe the best shape of any player in the NBA.
Because Luka isn't in as good of shape as Giannis, he's in bad shape.
No, but if we're comparing him to everybody else, let alone not even top 10, who's making all NBA teams, then top 30, he's not in good shape. Like, I don't know how you could sit here and be like, oh no, he's fine. Like he's not. This is I don't know. I don't think this is a hot take. I feel like Lakers fans included are going to tell you he's not in good shape. And again, he is still out there playing his fucking ass off. This isn't some like Luka's dog shit. He's the 15th best player in the league. No, this is like real criticism of Luka Doncic.
And that is the disconnect. I just don't think you can play 42 minutes of highly intense basketball every game. In game 3, have food poisoning and play through that and average 30 for the series and be in bad shape. Like I said, could he be in better shape? Is there a different level Luka can get to?
Yes.
I do think there is. But just because there's a different level he can get to doesn't mean he's in bad shape.
How did I start this whole back and forth? I said, if the Lakers want to seriously contend for a championship, Luka has to get in better shape.
Why is it on Luka when
it's
on the roster?
He's the best player.
The difference between the Lakers and the Timberwolves winning this series wasn't because of Luka. It was because of the Lakers personnel. They got out-rebounded by 16 rebounds tonight.
Yes. It's not just solely on Luka Doncic. I personally just do not believe.
Okay, so you're telling me
a championship if this is the condition he's going to be in.
So you're telling me Luka gets in better shape next year. This same roster, they're competing for anything serious?
No, like they obviously have to make changes. Like
That's what I'm saying.
Have to get better.
I'm saying that I think the major thing is the roster. I think Luka, even with how he looks right now, with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, could have went to the conference finals if they had him on his team. I think that's the difference. I think it's the roster.
Yes, but I personally, I think there's multiple levels, right? Like winning a playoff series, going to the WCF, making the finals, winning the finals. There's all different steps of difficulty. I think Luka Doncic with a better roster could still get you to the WCF or maybe damn near the NBA finals. That's how good he is. But what we saw last year and what we saw specifically in the finals, let me reiterate, specifically in the finals last year when the ball, because I thought last year in the Timberwolves, against Timberwolves, the Wolves bailed him out a lot. Like, I feel like they just weren't attacking him as much as Boston was, especially down the stretch in those games, fouling him out like in game 3, everything like that. But when teams have gotten intentional about going after him, like we saw in the finals, and like we saw in this series, I think that's when it really shows. And again, it's not just like this is the only thing that has to happen. The Lakers are going to win the finals next year, but this is part of it.
There are certain players that they have limitations. That is what it's going to be. Luka can be in better shape.
Yeah.
Yes. The bad defensive personnel around him also exacerbates the problem. Dirk Nowitzki won a championship and he wasn't a good defender. In 2011, they won because they had Kidd, Sean Marion, Deshaun Stevenson, Tyson Chandler, great defenders around him.
Yeah,
the 2 times that Luka has gotten deep into the playoffs, they had top 10 defenses around him and they had really great defensive personnel last year. And you look at the Mavericks and Celtics final series, The Celtics had their lowest offensive rating output in the finals of any of the series that they played. The
Mavs are
Mavericks,
great defense.
the Mavericks held up defensively. It was their offense that didn't show up. We can look at the plays, and I know there's a lot of plays where Luka gets blown by. I'm not defending his defense, but there are some players in NBA history that are all-time greats that are one-sided players that they are
Mhm.
way better on offense than on defense. And for those players, you have to build around them differently.
You
It's
know,
it's like
for sure.
Jokic. Jokic is not a great individual defender, although he could have moments of brilliance. He has to have a certain team built around him. And the
Mhm.
Nuggets in 2023, they had that team built around him, and that's why they were able to win the championship. Luka, I think, falls in the same ballpark. Like when he loses, just like Jokic in 2021 when he lost to the Suns and Chris Paul averaged 24 and 10 against them, the defense for Jokic is too bad to ever win a championship. But then you get help around him, and then he's able to win. For me, I think Luka falls in the same boat that he could get in this tip-top shape. It's not going to change that much how much of a good defender he is.
Yeah, well, I don't think Luka's ever going to be a great defender. I don't think he has to be a great defender. But I just think can we get in better shape? Like, can we just, be able to run? Look at the way Jokic runs up and down the court at 300 pounds. Luka can't do that. He doesn't do that.
Can we like this? What happened to Luka this year is the first time that something this drastic has ever happened in NBA history, where a player got traded mid-season, a blindside trade to a team that didn't have the personnel to realistically compete. The Mavericks have a far better roster, and that roster was built around Luka. Luka got traded into a situation, into a roster that was not prepared for his arrival, that they didn't have
You were
players
just
to
getting
build
on and
around
saying
him.
how the Lakers were favored, how you had them as the top 3 team in the West, and now all of a sudden they're not good enough.
Because of the star power, because of LeBron and because of Luka Doncic.
You're losing
Their
me.
role players, Gabe Vincent, he's not good. Jackson Hayes, he didn't play.
Luka
They're,
Doncic averaging 4 points in the fourth
they're
quarter.
relying
LeBron
on
too,
okay, but I'm
he's not
saying,
doing shit.
no trade in NBA history, no big trade midseason NBA history has ever resulted in a championship. It's literally never happened. It's
I
never
know.
happened in history. So I'm saying, can we at least wait until the roster rounds out after what you've seen? Because you had the Lakers winning this series and you had them winning this series comfortably to where you said you could rather see Lakers in 5 than Minnesota winning this series at
I
all.
did.
So after you watched the series, because you were probably high on the Lakers too, given that you thought they were good.
Yeah,
After you watch this series, do you not come away with the same takeaway that this roster is flawed?
no, absolutely. But that was what I was just saying 20 minutes ago, and you're like, well, the Lakers were favored and everyone expected them to win. We're flipping here.
No, I'm saying that I'm not giving them any grace because you said, what if they matched up with the Rockets and ended up winning? I wasn't giving them any grace. I'm not giving them any grace for losing. They lost this series, and I think it exposed their team. With that being said, I'm not looking at this series and saying, Luka, it's on you, buddy. I'm not. I'm looking at the centers.
No, again, like I said when I started all of this, the Lakers need to make, personnel changes, obviously. But to get to the final end goal to win an NBA championship, part of getting better is going to be Luka Doncic getting in better shape. I personally believe, maybe I'll be right, maybe I'll be wrong. We could come back to this in 10 years or when Luka wins a championship. I believe if Luka continues to go down the path he is going currently, I do not think he's going to be able to win a championship. That's me. I do not think his game is going to age. I think the injuries will just continue to pile up. And I feel like you need to be available for your team. Number one, you need to be available in the fourth quarter. That's just all I'm saying.
What about Luka's game can't age though?
Because he's getting injured now more often than he has earlier in his career. His athleticism is going year after year.
He doesn't rely on his athleticism.
He doesn't, but I feel like every year his burst is just a little bit less and less and less. Like eventually it's going to wear out. Like, what does Luka look like at 33 years old?
Post trade deadline, I think Luka will still be a fantastic player at 33 years old. By the way, I still think he'll still be one of the best. By the way, post trade deadline, he was getting to the basket more, especially to end the season. He was coming off a hamstring injury.
Again, the injuries.
Okay, but
He's had
that's a
like 4 different
isolated.
injuries this year.
That's a yes. He's had injuries that he's recovered from, but I'm not looking at that and saying now it's over. I mean, you're Nico Harris in this right now? You're telling you would have traded Luka.
Well, I would have been fine trading Luka. I just wouldn't have traded him for Anthony Davis and a first round pick.
I guess anybody could be fine if it's the right package. Personally, I think that if Luka was still on the Mavericks, we'd be talking about him way different because he got traded into a situation that I don't think fits his skill set all that much. But we'll get to the super chats. Jay Greedo goes, and taking only 8 shots, not at the 3 with no big should be a crime. He should not pull a Tatum and settle for threes.
Yeah, no, he was setting a little bit too much. I thought they were Julius Randle was the one really able to attack down the stretch. I feel like, and he's right, he was settling.
Shindy goes, Rudy Gobert is Luka Doncic's father.
How the 1 year, how the tables turn.
Yeah, really. Jalen Green with an E. Thank God Muhammad, Buddha, Gisna, and all others that I no longer have to watch Luka complain and look for a foul after every drive. And that's a fair criticism. And I'm answering to this comment, this chat. Big MGM, Joel, people were calling him out on this on the Mavs. There's no doubt people were calling him out on this in the Mavs. But I thought the finals was a more egregious example of what it looks like at its absolute worst. I really did. I thought this series, for the most part, it really just came down to a personnel problem. That's it. I just think when you can only pass the ball side to side and you can't pressure the rim at all, it's just gonna cause for stagnant offense. That's what it's gonna be. And Luka, his rim attempts have been getting lower, but since his rookie year, they have gotten lower almost every season. I think his very best, the last time my 2 eyes I've seen Luka at his very best was the 2022-2023 season when they got Derek Lively and they tanked for Derek Lively at the end. That's when I thought Luka looked like his very best with the burst and his shot making was all there all together. But his rim attempts have been down since his rookie season because I, like many people, I looked at Luka and saw a person who had less burst. And then I looked at the rim attempts, and they have been pretty similar for the last couple of years, even with the lack of burst that I feel like he doesn't have. Now, I agree. He has to get in better shape. I just push back on it. I push back on the notion that that's the reason why he can't win a championship. I think if he has the right roster around him, he could still do it.
Last thing I'll say about this. I feel like Luka gets comped to this guy very often. He's one of your guys, James Harden. I think James Harden, Luka Doncic, I think the similarities are there. They're both exceptional, out of this world, some of the best offensive engines we have ever seen. Their peak for James Harden is his, mid to late 20s. At 33 years old, James Harden was averaging 22 and a half a game. That's where I think Luka, I don't know. I could be wrong.
At 33?
He was averaging 22 and a half a game at 33 years old.
What year was that?
That's 32. Huh?
What year was that?
This was the 21-22 season.
Was that the Nets?
This was his second year on the Nets.
That was after he tore his hammy. Yeah, grant you hamstring.
We could go to his age 31 season. He was averaging 25, not 35.
Well, 25 is still one of the better players. And James Harden gets comped to Luka. I think James Harden puts in as much work as anybody, and he's still playing at an all-star level at 35 years old. Not a lot of players could do that. He was just an all-star, right now, sure. And I think he's probably going to make the All-NBA team. His problem is the playoffs. He's not a playoff performer.
No.
He has 25 games where he has more turnovers than field goals made. That's not Luka.
Tough look.
Luka is already a better. Luka is second all time in playoff points per game.
I'm not saying that. Obviously, Luka is one of the best player performers we have seen. I'm just saying James Harden's done a better job of it lately, especially this past couple of years on the Clippers. But he was also kind of notoriously known for coming into the regular season a bit out of shape and playing his way into shape.
That happened once when he was on the Rockets and he wanted to get traded.
All right. Maybe I'm crazy.
And then the Rockets beat the Warriors. There's really not much to say about that game. It was a blowout. The Rockets came out swinging and everybody played well. I had some money on Jalen Green to go off. I thought, fuck it. He's a guy.
In the first quarter, he played really well.
Here's the thing. I swear to God, I had a slip for him to get 25 points and 4 made threes. He had 6 points in the first 4 minutes of the game. And then
never sent the screenshot.
He bumped knees with Steph Curry and his knee got hurt and he started limping after that. And that's what happened. I swear to God, Jalen Green was on his way to having a great game, but the knee bump, it really hurt him. So Redhead goes, Luka can't win with LeBron. Anyone who knows basketball knew this. Luka is magic. He needs a center, not a point forward. I mean, he could win with LeBron as long as they have the roster around him.
What center do you want them to get?
Any viable center, like maybe I'm just shooting the shit here. Like, what if they go get DeAndre Ayton? What if they go get I think Rob Will would be great for them.
Rob Will would be great. The injuries are
Dallas,
scary, but
yeah, Dallas was able to make the finals because they acquired a center, they drafted a center, and then they got PJ Washington. I think the Lakers this offseason, they have to acquire 2 centers to fill up 48 minutes of basketball. That's the number one goal for them. If they can do that, whether it's Rob Will, maybe like another average center, they don't need a world beater. They just need somebody that can eat up minutes, catch lobs, and play some good defense. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But that's going to do it for our live stream. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like the stream. We had 517 people in here. We really appreciate you guys. We had to thug this out almost 2 in the morning in Eastern time zone. So make sure you guys like this stream. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time.